And we are live. Please, as always, guys, let me know if you can hear me, if I'm coming through loud and clear. Give me the first 2 minutes to set everything up, share it into the Tripod Facebook group, get my graphics in order, and then we will talk about the 7 games of footy we've seen in round 14. It's been all good so far, guys. Let me know who's riding our big multis. Share this sucker into the Tripod group. Pretty wild week in the Tripod group, guys. All right, she's shared in. Yeah, not only does it all come down to tomorrow, it all comes down to the first half tomorrow, really. So it's going to be a big one. Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, not everyone has a public holiday tomorrow, do they? But hope plenty of people were able to catch the game. Welcome to the Tripod, where we break down the NRL every week, every game from a punting perspective. I'm Jacob Wynn, and this is the live this is the live round 14 recap. I hope you guys can hear me. Someone put me off there saying they can't. Maybe just turn up your volume, Chris Harrison. Guys, it's been a perfect round so far. I'm coming to you live, even though round 14 is not complete. Of course, we've got Monday footy action, public holiday south of the border here, so no day off work for Queenslanders. But New South Wales folks who are watching this, enjoy your day off tomorrow. Hopefully you can catch the game. Hopefully plenty of boys are riding these multis. The 13-1 multi is going to come down to Bulldogs plus 6.5 in the first half tomorrow, as is the Podfather. We just got the first leg of the Podfather up. Thank you to Adam Tahiri, who usually provides heaps of jam with same-game multis. And we asked him for his best for the weekend. I thought we'd get a same-game multi. We just got a straight total tip. He tipped the overs in the game we just saw, which was Tigers-Eels, and we got over by 0.5 point. So you beauty. So now we've got a chance to hit both multis tomorrow. So the stats that are running across the screen are not fully updated. They're updated on the 3 games so far this round, but the mixed matchup is pending tomorrow as well. We need the Bulldogs to score more than 16 points, which is what the Broncos mustered, and I'll talk about that game and how they probably didn't even deserve 16. We're 3-0 on the best bets that we have had so far this round, 3 different matches, but there's still 2 tomorrow to be decided in the Bulldogs game. And as I said, both multis are on the line as well. So it has the potential to be our best round of the season. And it's been a really good season, guys. We are currently sitting at 67% on best bets, more than double winners to losers this year, which is crazy. And I've tried to temper expectations and talked about how I really didn't think anybody can still tip over 60%. And I wasn't foxing. I wasn't trying to, mislead people. I always try and be as honest as I can be. I hope plenty of people are getting on these and having a lot of success on the punt this season. Truthfully, the way I looked at it, if you look at our all-time best bet record, we're 59%. But that has included plenty of tips over the years on NFL, which we talk about how it's harder to beat. Most recent NFL season, we went 57%. We've had 55% NFL seasons, which we're still really proud of. And we even used to throw some NBA tips and stuff in there. If you just add up every NRL tip for the last 7 years, we're over 60%. So I knew what I'm capable of and what Alex and I have been capable of. But I have also noticed it just gets harder and harder every year. The bookies get sharper. The marketplace gets sharper. There's more people looking for the same plays that have learned a thing or two about how you can be successful doing this. And not to mention I'm on my own, so I don't have that kind of second mind to bounce back and forth and maybe weed out the weaker plays. So I genuinely thought I'm not going to quite live up to the past. It's harder than ever. And even if I do my best, 60% is a crazy benchmark to try and strive for. If I'm in the high 50s and we're making profit punting on the NRL, which we enjoy doing, I'll be really happy with that. So to be sitting, more than halfway through the season where we are, I don't think that's a sustainable number, but it has been sustained for 14 rounds so far. So let's talk about game by game anyway. And I'll be dead honest as well, where there were games I was close to having a tip. And I think in a couple of cases, we're very lucky that I didn't. Let's start with the Friday game. The opening match of the round was the Seagulls putting 50 on the Cowboys. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's the most points the Cowboys have conceded this season. So that would put them out of the equation with that old rule that you can't concede 50 and win the comp. Not that many people had those sort of expectations. But to be fair, Cowboys came into this game 7th position on the ladder. And I was very close to pulling the trigger on a Cowboys plus 6.5 handicap. I said on Thursday when I did the preview, could not see any scenario where Tom Trbojevic would play. And we know that Manly are not the same team without Trbojevic. So I wasn't really afraid of Manly. But I just thought you had to recall that Manly hadn't played for 2 weeks, and their last match was that disappointing loss to the Knights. So I still thought they'd put up a good effort at home. I don't know since when that's been called Four Pines Park. I don't know if that's temporary or it's not Lotto Land anymore, or I still call it Brookie. And if you didn't see this game, the Cowboys shot out to a 12-0 lead. So then I'm kicking myself. Why didn't I take the Cowboys? Taumalola was back. But unlike, then we saw something that is just, I don't know, it's becoming more normal, but it never used to be normal. Seagulls scored 34 straight points. I think Seagulls scored 5 straight tries before it was even halftime, after being down 12-0. And they didn't miss Turbo. They had Ruben Garrick doing his very best Turbo impersonation. Absolutely tore the Cowboys to shreds. That really shocked me. Not the Cowboys losing, but the position that they're in to lose the game that magnitude. I was really surprised that the Cowboys fell apart like that. They were also off to bye. This is a big game for them, as I said. They're right on the fringe there of they know that it's going to be 1 or 2 wins or losses, give or take, that decides their fate at the end of this season. You just would have thought they'd be a bit more competitive. They were woeful after they got out in front early. And the Seagulls, that's got to impress you. To put up 50 without Tommy Trbojevic, that really does kind of stake their claim as, I reckon, a sleeper contender. And maybe they're not under the radar anymore because we all know what Trbojevic is capable of. Let me know what you guys kind of made of that game, guys. We'll move to Sharks Panthers, where I did have a best bet, and the best bet was the Sharks plus 6.5. And one thing that I did talk about in the preview was one of the tricks to round 14 is not just trying to predict what's going to happen in these matches, but it's trying to predict which players are going to play. And I think part of the reasons we had great success this round is because I've done really well with predicting which teams would rest players. And, it wasn't certain on Thursday who was going to be playing for Penrith. I said I'd be surprised to see any of them except for Liam Martin. And thankfully, they did rest 5 Origin stars, the Panthers. And that certainly helped our Sharks play with plus 6.5. So on Friday, for the multi, the line had dropped 2 points because it was then official that the 5 Origin stars were out. And to me, once you knew that, the value was still on Cronulla. People probably don't understand that Cronulla is a decent footy team. They've made the 8 the last 2 years. They've had a lot of injuries. They've had coaching disruption. They've had Sean Johnson out, and then he was back and then out again. But they're starting to come together, and they had their challenges in this game. But again, off a bye, this Sharks side has now won 3 in a row. Now, it was a very interesting game of footy. The Sharkies, if you didn't catch it, got out 18-0. So at that point in time, we're an hour into the game and the Sharkies are up 18-0. We've got plus 6.5. It's one of the easier wins you're going to get in the whole season. And then the Panthers started clawing back. And I will say, you're feeling pretty confident about your tip when you're sitting there watching the footy like I was on Friday night. And I was cheering for Penrith to come back. I thought this will be interesting if Penrith make a little surge here. I don't see how they're going to score, more than 24 points in these final 15 minutes. But the Sharkies have been known to choke on a game or two, choke on a couple of leads. Would be interesting if we got, an exciting finish if Penrith got this within a try. Well, they did better than that. They leveled up, and Matty Burton kind of put the team on his back. I was going to say throughout the first hour of that Panthers-Sharks game, the Panthers just looked so disjointed. They just didn't look like they had any answers. They had a lot of really, really poor attacking sets. I think they had just as much territory as the Sharks, but they never, clearly that's not a surprise when you're missing that continuity and you're missing your star playmakers. Even though there's still some good players out there on the field, you still got your Stephen Crichtons, your Matty Burtons, your Dylan Edwards is back there, but obviously it starts with, and then Coruscant was out there too, but it starts with this team is built around Nathan Cleary. They're not the same team without him. Having said that, the Sharkies didn't put the game away. Panthers got it all the way back to 18-all. It actually, I think at one point, it was 18-16 to the Sharkies, and the Panthers were knocking on the door, and the Sharkies were lucky. They gave away a penalty on their own line, and Panthers took the 2 to level up. Had that not happened, you never know. Panthers could have probably scored a try that set. It gets to 18-all. Penrith were on the attack. They kind of butchered an opportunity to even get a shot at field goal. Tried to go blindside and threw the ball into touch, which was kind of symptomatic of the fact that they're missing their Iceman. Cronulla goes down the other way. Sean Johnson kicks a wobbly as anything field goal that just gets in inside the post and just over the bar. And the way that field goal went off the boot of Johnson summed up the win for the Sharkies. Anything but pretty, but they'll absolutely take it. As for Ivan Cleary in the post-match conference, he talked about how it was always going to be the plan that when you get a draw like that with a match 2 days after Origin and you knew you're going to have some rep stars, they probably didn't anticipate having kind of 7 in the New South Wales and Queensland squads combined, that it was just going to be smarter long-term to rest those players. And even though his team lost the match, and as we know, Penrith have lost 2 in a row, they weren't regretting that decision because they know they're playing the long game, and they talked about how Penrith have banked so many wins. And I'll just say one more thing on the match. Like, I've watched Penrith now lose 2 weeks in a row, and even with the players that were out, they were still favourites to win those games. So the fact that they lost, by definition, it means they've underperformed what the market expected. Because if everyone can say afterwards, oh, of course they lost, the Origin players were out, but it's not, of course, because they were still favourites. If it was that obvious, you would have just all, would have hit the head-to-head on the underdog. So what do we take out of that? Do we think that Penrith maybe aren't quite as deep as we expected? It's hard to take too much away from them. In my personal opinion, they're going to be absolutely fine, and it is always smarter to freshen up your key players and not kind of grind them into the dirt. And I believe in when we get Origin 2, Penrith has the bye that week, the following week anyway, so they're not going to be put in that dilemma. Let's move to Saturday. This was the game of the round, maybe game of the season. Tell me what you guys thought about this one. This was the Roosters jagging a win at the Gold Coast, 35-34. I didn't have a best bet on this game. I actually talked about how it was the perfect spot for the Roosters. The line at the time I did the pod on Thursday, I think was 11.5. And so I was leaning to the Roosters, but I also said I wouldn't be surprised if Teddy would be ruled out. So I felt there's no point backing the Roosters when you think Tedesco is going to be ruled out because the line could drop. So my plan with attack was like, maybe if Tedesco gets ruled out, I think they'll still be all right. So Ali comes in, the shuffle Manu, and then maybe the smart play on this game is to lay like 9.5 with the Roosters. But as it turned out, AJ Brimson was also scratched. And so that kind of cancelled out. So I had to lean to Roosters, felt that they'd win pretty comfortably, but didn't touch it. So I turned on the game Saturday Arvo, and as I explained to you guys, if I don't tip something, I'm happy to be wrong. I'm totally happy to be wrong if I haven't tipped it. So I'm watching the game thinking, geez, it'd be nice if the Titans could make a game of this. That would be, that'd be interesting. They started Fafita and Fasul Malaawi, who both backed up, but they started both on the bench. And the Roosters were just way too good. It was 18-0 early. The Titans had so much ball on the Roosters line. Now, at one point in this game, the stats of tackles in opponent 20 was 46-4 in favor of the Titans, but they were losing the game. So that gives you an indication of how bad the Titans were with the ball. There was a controversial moment in the first half, I thought, watching it live. I definitely thought that when Angus Crichton made that line break, and again, we got to see another another performance by Jaden Campbell playing fullback for the Titans. And just on that note, this match had Jaden Campbell, Sam Walker, and Joseph Suwali, like 17 and 18-year-olds. That actually was exciting in itself to see like the next generation of stars all on the field at the same time, and they're all so exciting to watch. But this particular play, if you saw it, you can let me know what you thought. Campbell brings down Crichton 1-on-1. He has a bit of momentum. It's near the line, but to me, hit the ball carrying arm, hit the ground, and Crichton used his other arm to push himself up again and used his knees to do a little army crawl that helped him get to the line. They looked at it and said it was fine. I was quite shocked, but Roosters ended up getting out to a 30 points to 4 lead. So you never really thought that decision was, going to impact the game. But then I can't even explain what happened after that. I mean, Sam Walker was really thrown into the ground in a tackle, hurt his shoulder. He had to go off. I think the Roosters lost some direction from that. Who was it that got the sin bin? Was it Marshke got the sin bin for the Roosters? And clearly that changed the game. I think the Titans scored twice while Marshke was off the field, and they had already scored once just before that. All in all, the Titans scored 30 straight points and hit the front. It was Gold Coast 34, Roosters 30, after the Roosters had led 30-4. So this was absolutely insane. And from that point, the Gold Coast really had to win this game. That would have equaled the largest comeback in the history of or in the NRL era, a 26-point comeback. And they hit the front, and then they dropped the ball. They let the Roosters come back. Roosters score on the sideline. Kieran had been taken off. Sam Walker comes back on with the bum shoulder, has a chance to win it from the sideline, 2 minutes to go, shanks the conversion. Titans then get another opportunity at 34 all, or we're thinking this crazy game is about to give us some bonus footy. We're probably going to Golden Point. Titans spill their beans again. This time it was Fogarty who, sadly for him, he was so instrumental in the comeback. He drops it. Roosters get one final chance. It's still no certainty, but Sam Walker, ice in his veins, comes back on, as I said, carrying the injury, and slots the match-winning field goal, redeems himself for the missed conversion. Not that it's his fault to miss a sideline conversion when we know he's not the greatest kicker. And that's how this one ended. And that's a crazy win for the Roosters to be leading by that magnitude and to then find themselves down and to come back. Overall, you've got to be happy with that kind of resilience. But for the Titans, if we look back to last week, the way that they were like 22 or 24-point underdogs to the Storm and had multiple chances to tie the game late last week at the Sunny Coast, and then this game you couldn't have gone any closer to winning than they did. It's brutal for them. I talked about this in the match in the round preview. They are now 5 of 14, and it doesn't get any easier. They play Manly next week. They've got a road trip to Canberra, and I believe they've got Parramatta. Those teams all look pretty good to me. So the Titans probably are going to miss the 8 and probably look back at matches like that. That's my opinion. Moving to the next game on Saturday, where the Rabbitohs beat the Knights 24-10. Beat them by not as many as most people probably predicted. We did win our best bet on this game, which was under 4.5 tries in the first half. There was exactly 4. There was a Knights try with like 3 minutes left in the half, so we did have to sweat those final kind of 120 seconds of the half, and it was a sweat because there was some goal line attack on the back of that. But also in the multi, it just took Knights plus 8.5 in the first half. They were only down 12-10 at first half. It was a very even contest first half. After the Rabbitohs scored like 3 minutes into the game, it had me a bit nervous. Now, one of the reasons I took this was because I still think I have a little bit more faith in what Newcastle are about than most people. I don't think that they're the basket case that some people might make them out to be. They didn't fluke that win against Manly a couple of weeks ago. They got awful last week against Para. But they showed again in this one, clearly the Knights are missing a lot of their key personnel. And I believe Adam O'Brien said they're going to get 4 of their starting, of their best 17 back next week, including Mitchell Pearce and possibly Ponga. So clearly they were up against it in this one, and they were big underdogs. I think the line was around 16 and a half. But the other reason that it was worth jumping on and it was worth playing unders was anticipating that the Rabbitohs might rest players. And in the end, no Gagai, no Arrow, no Cook, no Cam Murray. That helped even up the contest. In saying that, the Knights were a bit wasteful with the opportunities they did get. late in the first half and to begin the second half. And in the end, Rabbitohs just kind of accelerated away from them. And you play against a good team and you don't take your chances, it usually comes back to burn you. With the Rabbitohs, it certainly did. I mean, Latrell backed up, and they've still got Cody Walker, who was exceptional. Adam Reynolds, obviously, still there, steering the ship around. So, and I believe Jaden Sewer, because he only played off the bench for Queensland, he was involved in this one. And Kaloa Matangi as well had a big game. So, Rabbitohs a bit too good for the Knights, but it wasn't a foregone conclusion. Even late in that game, I think the Knights dropped the ball over the line. And I imagine a lot of people would have had bets like Rabbitohs 13+. So that could have easily been foiled. But in the end, this game played quite close to the line. But the Knights did the right thing by us, covering the line and keeping it under 4.5 tries first half. Then we had another win in the nightcap last night, which was the Raiders 38 defeating the Broncos 16. And the best bet was simply Raiders -7.5. So it's a 22-point win. In the multi, we had Raiders leading halftime and full-time. In the group, we've had a few people talking about how they've just been betting Raiders lead at halftime, but the opponent to win at full-time, because this Raiders team have been the ultimate choke artists. And we've seen so many times this season where the Raiders have got out in front and then fallen apart. But the difference in this game was I felt as long as Canberra comes in switched on, Brisbane is not the kind of team that can chase points against them. Brisbane doesn't have the firepower. Brisbane had an awful week. I mean, you chop and change your halves again. Carmichael Hunt, as I said in the preview, was debuting for the club, 12 years since his last match. But then during the week, they had to change the halves again. Albert Kelly, I think, tweaked a hammy in training. So then they went to Tyson Gamble. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, in the warm-up for this game, Xavier Coates, who was backing up from Origin, he tweaks his hammy as well. He couldn't play. They had to shuffle the team right before kickoff. And you're looking at this score, if you didn't see it, and say, oh, yeah, Raiders a bit too good for Brisbane. No, this should have been 50-0. This should have been 60-0. I watched that Brisbane team come out of the sheds to start this game, and they looked like the most sorry bunch you've ever seen. I looked at Kevy. He looked sick before the game had even started. Coates obviously devastated with the injury, but they all looked dejected. Even Carmichael Hunt, you think he'd be excited. They looked like they were gone out there for a hiding to nothing. The Broncos scored 2 quite fortuitous tries, both off kicks in the first half, and were down 22-10 at halftime, and were lucky to have 10 on the board. And in the second half, the Raiders extended, and I think it was 38-10, and the Broncos had a send-off. Now, I will say that send-off for Kobe Hetherington was a joke. Can't remember which Raiders player it was, but might have been Harawira Naira. He was tripped. It was like he was tackled around the ankle and completely fell face first into the shoulder of a man who's just trying to make a tackle. So that was ridiculous. And on that point, we saw a lot less strict discipline with regards to head-high shots this round. So what we've noticed from Magic Round, where it was like the first game or the first night had like 7 different sin binnings, they have backed off that now, the NRL. And I've heard the narrative from the NRL is, the players are adjusting. See, this rule is excellent. The players are learning to lower their contact. I think there's a little bit of truth in that. But the bigger truth is that they've eased back and they're not sending everybody to the bin. And what's really frustrating for fans and viewers and punters, I think, is you never know, is a high shot a penalty, just a penalty, report? I mean, when you're watching a game, you don't care if a player gets put on report. You're happy for them to put every player on report. They can sort it out later. But what's a penalty? What's a sin bin? What's a send-off is about as clear as mud. And that one absolutely was not a send-off. It obviously doesn't affect the game. They were down 28, and Brisbane actually hung on and scored a try with 12 late in that game. So, as I say, I think Brisbane avoided a much more humiliating defeat than it actually could have been. But for the Raiders, they get their season back on track, I believe, looking a bit better. Papali and White were back in the team. Moving to today, just 2 games to wrap up before tomorrow. So the Warriors hosted the Storm, but the Storm were way too good. 42-16. I didn't have a best bet on this game or either of the games today. Storm got all their Origin players back apart from Christian Welsh. She had the high shot, the HIA protocol. He could never have backed up on the short turnaround, but the others did. And this Storm team are just so ruthless when they get all the troops on deck. And obviously the other man who's still missing is Pappenhausen. But this team, when they're full complement, nobody can really stay near them. And it's hard to assess how bad the Warriors were today. Personally, I didn't think New Zealand was that bad. They just didn't have a lot of possession, and they just couldn't stop the Storm. This Storm team have so many powerful ball runners. They have a powerful forward pack. And obviously when you got Brandon Smith being able to revert back to being a loose forward and running like one off the ruck, and I think Brandon's the cheese. He got at least one try today, if not a double. When you've got the ability to run him as a loose forward and Harry Grant playing hooker, which they've been missing for the last few weeks, it's an extra dimension to this team. Munster was back in there, and Nico Hines is obviously doing a stellar job at fullback. So all in all, Warriors really didn't have much chance today, especially once the Storm got out in front. I think halftime score was 18-2. Second half, there was actually a hat-trick to Ken Marmelo in his final game. He's going to be moving to the Tigers. And that, was at least some consolation for the Warriors to get a couple of late tries and a couple of really impressive finishes by Marmelo. But overall, they got lapped there. I still think this Warriors team is a pretty talented bunch. They did cop what could be a really scary injury, Harris Tavita, possible pec tear. But in saying that, and obviously you never like to see that, and I really rate him, and he put on a hell of a shot on Brandon Smith to save a try in this match. But the silver lining would be they've unearthed Reece Walsh, who was suspended today, but would come back into the 6th jersey if Harris Tavita can't play that role. So I still think the Warriors will be heard from this season. Nobody is really cementing those 7th and 8th spots on the ladder. Warriors not good enough today, but overall, they could be a team we look to find some value on in coming weeks. And then the Eels absolutely destroyed the Tigers as well in what was a bit of a bizarre game. 40-12 was the final score. I guess what I found strange about this game was just so many errors, so many missed opportunities, kind of highlighted by Mitch Moses absolutely muffing opportunity to score a try in the first half that would have put the Eels well out in front, and then the Tigers bounced back and scored moments later. And at that point in time, when we were needing the overs for the Podfather multi, you're thinking moments like that are going to cost you, because this game was like 8-0 to Para, I think 25 minutes in, and the Podfather tip from Adam was over 49.5. Now I said that we got over by half a point. Sorry, there was a penalty goal to Parramatta on the siren, so ends up going over by 2.5 points. But really, if you weren't counting on that, it just scraped over. What else can you say? I mean, Joey Lussick was in there at hooker because they're missing Reid Marnie. Blake Ferguson still played reserve grade. But getting Dylan Brown back in this team has definitely showed what a difference it makes. That's the second week in a row Dylan Brown's been back and they've put up 40 points. As for West, just when they started to maybe build some momentum with 2 wins in a row, a really disappointing performance. Now, there was a late change. Moses Mbai didn't play in this one. Billy Walters was in, and he hasn't played footy for a long time, coming off an ACL. So in that sense, a bit of a tough day at the office. Parramatta at Wank Best are a tough proposition, but the Tigers never got near them. And again, we had the sin bins used in this game, but it was just so inconsistent this round. It does make it, you just feel like it's a bit of a lottery going into every game. And I will just quickly touch on, obviously, tomorrow, Monday afternoon, it's a 4 p.m. game. So obviously I'm not addressing exactly how we've done this round. Depending on when you listen to this, if you're tuning in live or if you catch this tomorrow or the day after, you'll hear my full summary of how we've gone in round 14 on Wednesday when I do the round 15 preview. But it's all going to come down to the Bulldogs. And there has been some news come out, not good for us, with Tenny Zalesniak, who last week when the teams were listed was expected to play through a foot injury, is now ruled out. Katoa is going to move to fullback. I prefer that wasn't the case. A Bulldogs team that doesn't have a lot of talented players. I like a guy who has captained New Zealand to still be there. It's not going to be the case. Overall, I still think we're getting value with the Bulldogs. That's why I put 2 best bets on them. So we've got plus 6.5 in the first half, plus 14 points for the game. But I think that key leg that is in it, the anchor to our multis, is that first half. So the good thing about playing Bulldogs plus 6.5 first half is that what I've seen in a lot of matches this season is even when the underdog doesn't have a lot of a chance, and gets blown out, sometimes they keep it close in the first half. I actually think Bulldogs could make this a close game beyond 40, but let's hope for at least 40 minutes. But we're in such a strong position here with the mixed matchup paying $2.75. But if you tried to bet Bulldogs over 16 points, you'd be getting $1.80. Obviously, the 13-1 multi, the $3.80 multi, and the two best bets. If you guys were looking to hedge back, I wouldn't blame you, because you can go and shop around, and talking to people about that in the comments, you could play Dragons -5.5 in the first half, and you'd be covered and you couldn't lose. You'd lock in a great profit, and you'd even have the possibility of a middle where the halftime margin could land exactly Dragons by 6, and you could win even more than you would have won if you did nothing. So there's plenty of options on the table when you've grabbed great value and when everything in front of it has won. But these are the moments in a season where some games are more important than others. Tomorrow is a bloody important one, just to really, not that we're in a position where we're needing wins, but it will be a really nice one to get. So I can't wait for the footy tomorrow. Hopefully plenty of people can catch it and enjoy the game, and I'll talk to everyone through the group and through the threads, and appreciate your feedback and your support as always, because that's what makes sharing all this tips and content very worthwhile to me. So cheers for all the support, guys. You can always drop a review on the Apple iTunes podcast store or on the Facebook page, or just spread the word amongst your mates if you think that you appreciate the pod, because I can't do any better than what I'm doing, that's for sure. So this is going to be as good as it gets. So if this isn't good enough to tell your mates, then I don't know what will. But I appreciate everybody who does and who does support, and enjoy the footy tomorrow. Best of luck on all your punts. Always gamble responsibly. See you Wednesday. Lego.